Hello everybody. I hope that we are all doing okay with the HTML codes that we have talked and discussed in the last 3 weeks. I have been looking at your work and most of you guys have completed your work with the assigned outcomes. However, I just want to make a comment that keep in mind that at the end of the class I would want to see a complete website developed with some substantial content, at least 12 to 15 pages, with everything that we are learning through the semester being applied there. Now, you also have to be pretty creative and plan the entire website ahead of time, because otherwise it is going to have pages or it is going to have content that would not be connected together, or it would be kind of out of context. So you can start thinking about creating a website for a business, maybe a hobby that you have, or maybe a shop that you want to put online, or anything like that. And we can talk more about it in the class. So today what I would like to do is go over some tags which would allow me to do some image maps. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, that from here on I would type out the code and then go over the tags with you all. Otherwise it just takes way too long to type the codes while I'm talking, and of course I'm making mistakes. So I would start with a very basic doc type page, and I actually took it from my previous lecture and kind of moved some content around. Right now I do have the doc type HTML at the very top, and you have your HTML beginning and ending tag over here. So that's something that you have already seen. You have your head. Inside your head tag you have your title, and then you have your body, and inside your body we have the header tag, and inside your header you have the nav tag, which basically creates that nav button at the top. Now, all these links that you have seen, or you are seeing here, are all absolute paths, because as you can see everything is HTTP and then the www and visit Florida and visit California. So these are basically links, and I would also want to add another lecture which kind of goes over some of the CSS tags that we would start introducing in our class from this week. So these are basically my nav or my links that I have, and these are all absolute links. And then I have a header which says image maps, and I have a little paragraph which says image maps are ways of making an image interactive. And then I have a second header tag. So this is kind of, in importance, H2 is less important than your image map or the H1 tag. But let's look into the map tag and how we are setting up the area for the map. So here is your image source, okay, and this is usmap.jpg, and I basically went ahead, I went to Google and downloaded a map for the United States. So you have your image name, and then the alternate text is US map. This is something that you are seeing for the first time. This is a tag called useMap, and this useMap is actually an attribute inside your image tag, and that has a name that you are coming up with. Okay, so useMap is basically a way, an attribute that would allow you to define a name of the image. Now make sure that before the name of the image you have a hashtag, okay, and then you have a style, and the style basically determines the height and the weight of the picture that you are using. So in this case I have 542 pixel with height 374 pixel. Now how did I get that height? There are several ways you can do this. I had opened up my image with Paint, okay, the Paint program that comes as a default under our accessories. which would tell you at the very bottom if you have or coordinate the size of the image. Okay, so let me open up Paint just to show you the example. So here is Paint for me. Okay, and once I open up the page in Paint, it tells me right over here the size 542 by 374 pixels. Okay, and also once I have my rulers and my grid lines checked on, you can pretty much see that if I move my cursor here, it kind of gives me a measure. There's a red line that is moving back and forth as I'm moving my my cursor. Now those are the coordinates that we will be using a whole lot when we define our maps. Okay, another thing that I found is there is a program called GIMP. You can go to Google and you can click or you can type in GIMP. It's a free downloadable image manipulating program, and this is actually even better than Paint, because in this one, as soon as you take your cursor to any part of the map, it tells you exactly what your coordinates are at the very bottom. Okay, so if you look at the very bottom left, which is this area right here, as soon as I take it over here, it tells me the coordinate 129, 127. And we'll talk about the coordinates in just a minute. So it tells me the XY coordinate that I'm pointing my cursor at. Okay, so over here, what I'm doing is, in my image source, I have to define my use map, and then I have this style, and I showed you how I can get the pixels. And then I open up my tag called map. Okay, so this is my map, and there is a closing map tag. Inside my map, I have an attribute called name, and the name has to match the same name as my use map I had defined for that particular image. Remember, one web page can have multiple images, and multiple images could have maps built into them. However, every individual image has to have a unique map or a use map name that has to map with the that has to be exactly the same with the map that you are creating. All right, now let's look into the map area. Okay, so inside your map tag, you have your name attribute that has to match with the image that you're trying to make interactive or trying to make it a link. I can have several different kinds of maps. I can have a rectangle, I can have a circle, I can have a polygon. Again, I have a rectangle, and I just showed you a few examples of that. So what I'm really trying to do here is, what I'm trying to do over here is create an image, or have an image where inside that image I can have certain areas of the image being interactive. In my case, I'm actually making those sections of the images a link which would take me to a different page. So let me show you how my page, once I render it through a browser, how it looks. This is my final page where I have these nav bars at the top, and again, these are all links. I can click on these links and it would open pages up, which is basically a tourist site. It's Virginia.com or Virginia Tourism, Texas Tourism, California Tourism, and Florida Tourism. And then I have this map area right here, but inside my map area, you see there are certain areas of the map which are interactive or which are going to act as an image link. Okay, of course Iowa is not a part of it. Look at what happens when I take it to Florida. So inside my code, I have created an area in this region of the map, okay, by defining the coordinates so that I can make that area a link. Now as soon as you take my my cursor to Alabama or Georgia, it is not a link anymore. Okay, so it allows me to make certain areas of the map interactive. Okay, now as you can see here, even when I am pointing towards the blue ocean, it is still giving me a link because I had defined this area as a rectangle. So it kind of goes from here all the way down over here and then kind of right and then going back up. And this is where you would need the help from an image editing program, because the way you define these coordinates is by x1 or x and y coordinates. And the way, let me go back to the code. These coordinates are my xy, x1, y1, and x2, y2. The way the coordinates work, just to give you an example, is this top left hand corner is going to be my 0, 0. So at this point my x1 is 0 and my y1 is 0. It is kind of reverse the way we look at coordinates in our math. In our math we start from the bottom over here. So y goes up like this and x goes right like this. Over here in our image, everything starts from the top left hand corner. So y comes down like this and x goes to the right over here. So this is my x1, y1, and this is my x2, y2. So as I come from this corner to this corner, my coordinates are changing. So I'm moving to the right, so my x is coming over here and my y is coming down somewhere over here. So it's very important that I know the exact coordinate. Okay, now when I put the coordinates, the x coordinate and the y coordinate, you have to be very, very careful. When I give you the coordinate values, it looks pretty straightforward and it's pretty simple, but really you have to be careful about how you find those coordinates out. As I mentioned earlier, your xy coordinates would start from the upper left hand corner of the image, which is 0, 0 at this point, and then as you go or to the right, you're moving to the x1, y1. So that's how your coordinates are moving. So moving from the upper left hand corner of the box, and the second two coordinates are at the lower right hand corner. Okay, so let's look at how you can figure out the coordinate. So now if I bring up my paint map, okay, if I bring up my paint map, okay, as I take my cursor right over here, see, this is my Kansas. Now at this point, look at the area, or look at this area right here at the lower bottom left. So when I go to Iowa x1, y1, you see this coordinate 262 by 105. And if I go to the lower right hand corner of Iowa, this is 311 by 144. So if I want to define a rectangle, which is kind of a square area or a rectangular area, you go from the very top left and to the bottom right. So this is basically the way you would define your rectangular area. Okay. When you try to define your circle, okay, the circle is pretty much defined as, you need to again find the x and the y and then the radius that you need to define as your circle. Okay, so if I come over here, and let me show you how this one looks. If I come over here, I actually made Texas kind of a circle link, where if I keep my cursor over here, my radius should be going from here to the end of Texas. Now again, I may not be quite exact because I was kind of guesstimating in the beginning just to see how my xy coordinates match up. But then of course I showed you that through programs like Paint, which is by default there, if you take your cursor over here, it tells you exactly the center of it. So 233 by 256 is your center, and then from here you kind of have to guesstimate what this one becomes. So as you can see, from here 259 to about if I'm centering over here, if I want to do a radius, it's 232. So you probably need to give me about 10 or 15 as my radius, which would cover the entire state of Texas. Okay, now you can use two programs, the Paint as I showed you, or right here I also use this GIMP, where if I take it right here, it tells me exactly what my coordinates are at the bottom left hand corner. And you can also see a ruler over here, so it kind of shows you where I am at. So the circle is given by the X, Y, and the radius, and you can also define maps that are a polygon. Okay, and with your polygon, it's going to be x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3, all the way up to xn, yn. And again, remember, polygons are shapes that are very irregular, so you have to go at every single corner. So for example, if I want to make this one a polygon, so I can come over here, find out the coordinate, I can come over here, find the coordinate, come over here, find the coordinate, come over here, find the coordinate, come here, find coordinate, come here, find coordinate. So I can actually make that shape exactly a polygon just by coming over here, with some kind of an image tool, find the coordinate and put the values in as far as x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3, and so on and so forth. Okay, so in this code, I basically did 4 different shapes, and let's go through the code right here a little bit. So inside your map, you have to define your area. You have to come up with a shape attribute, and this could be rectangle, circle, or polygon. And then you have to define your coordinates. So these are my coordinates: x1, y1, x2, y2, and there's a title. Okay, I also showed a target where if I do click on it, so if I click on my Florida right here, if I click on Florida, it would open up on a different tab that's given by my underscore blank target. Okay, see how it's taking me to my Florida page right here. So that's where it's taking me to, and so that's what it's taking me to. That's given by the target, and then you have your alt tag, and of course your href, and then the entire URL. So that's basically how you would define your map area. Could be rectangle, could be circle, could be polygon, and only thing you need would be the right coordinates. And again, you can use Paint, or you can use GIMP, G-I-M-P, which will give you the coordinates right on this left hand bottom corner. And also you can see the ruler move back and forth when you're moving your cursor. Okay, so that should be the code for creating image maps. Thank you.